Alright guys, I am tired. I stayed up way too late last night looking over this opportunity, but this meeting with Devin is gonna be cool. I think that this could really be the start of the next big thing in my business life. Super excited. I want to tell you guys all the details, which I will super soon if we can pull this off, but hopefully this meeting goes well. What's up, man? Just getting the day started. Excited to chat with you about this. Got a couple other meetings and stuff to do surrounding this today and this week, so yeah, it's good timing.
Yeah, so I just wanted to get your thoughts, and I know you had mentioned trying to build or kind of talk about getting a team up, etc. And so I was just wanted to kind of pick your brain on what you were thinking in terms of the syndication and what would be an ideal role for me, kind of what were you looking for in general. I'm just trying to understand that a little bit more in detail.
Yeah, good question. I think that your role is definitely someone who has already been through this process before, who has a stronger finance background, who might also have, an additional network of potential LPs, right? So that's kind of what I see your role on the GP team being, if it's finance and fundraising type deal.
Yep.
Is that appealing to you?
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking, and I just wanted to kind of understand.
All right, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Well,
yep.
I'm excited to get moving on this.
Me too. I think it's gonna be really cool.
All right, later.
Thanks. See ya.
That went well. Let's make this shake. Let's go.
Hey, baby.
Hey, Ma, how you doing?
You good? How are you?
I'm good. That was a pretty good score, huh?
Oh, yeah. Man, that's just wow.
You remember I said I had that meeting with Devin this morning?
Mm-hmm.
So, went super well, and he was like, that's a great idea. He's all in to be the finance / fundraiser person.
Mm-hmm.
And so today I'm making the new pitch deck, and then hopefully in the next week or two we'll have a good financial forecast.
Mm-hmm.
And start having meetings with investors to raise money to buy a property.
So when you say you're doing the new pitch deck, what does that look like?
Like a presentation outlining the idea, the feasibility, myself, who the team is, why it's a good opportunity, that type of thing.
Awesome.
Now, to give you guys a little bit more insight into what Devin and I are working on and kind of why we're approaching things in the way that we are, we have to talk about the difference between residential real estate, which is what I was doing, and commercial real estate, which is what I'm looking to move into. And so residential real estate, how you find the value of a residential property is you look at comparable homes. And so if I have a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom built in 2001, and it's in similar condition as a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom built in 2001 that's next door to me, whatever that home sold for is probably gonna be pretty comparable to what my home sold for. And if my home is nicer than that home, then it'll probably sell for a little more. And if it's not as nice as that home, then it'll probably sell for a little less. And so residential properties, the value is all about comps. But with commercial properties, and commercial can mean commercial / residential, which is 5 units or more. So a 50 unit or a 500 unit apartment building, that's technically commercial real estate. Or it can be commercial, more business focused, like a strip mall that has a CVS and a Starbucks in it. So those are some examples of commercial real estate. And what we're talking about right now is moving into commercial real estate that is more business focused than residential focused. But either way, instead of depending on comps to find the value of that building, we want to focus on something called NOI, or your net operating income. And what your NOI is basically the income that the property makes minus the expenses. But the really big point here is that you don't include debt payments. Okay, hopefully you can read my chicken scratch. But when we look at how much the property makes in income minus the expenses, so what you're spending on maintenance, what you're spending on utilities, if you're operating a business, what you're spending on employees, minus all of those expenses except your mortgage payment, that's gonna make up your NOI. And there are more in-depth reasons as to why you want to ignore your mortgage payments. And if you're interested in this type of thing, I definitely recommend you read this book right here, The Multifamily Millionaire Part 2. That's the one that talks about commercial real estate. This one, Multifamily Millionaire Part 1, talks about residential real estate. Read them both, but residential, commercial. But one of the reasons that you want to ignore the debt payments is because you want a good look at how well that business is operating outside of how good of a loan the owner was able to get. So if I went to get a loan and it was shortly after the pandemic and interest rates were 3%, well then my debt payments are gonna look a lot different than somebody who's trying to get a loan right now when interest rates are at 6 or 7%. And so we want to ignore the debt and the interest rates so that we're getting a good look at the true expenses of the business and not the expenses of the business that are dependent on the terms of the debt that someone was able to borrow. But why is NOI important? Well, when you're looking at commercial real estate, the way that you come to the property value is by taking that NOI and dividing it by something called a cap rate. Again, Multifamily Millionaire Part 2, really good book. I listened to it on Audible maybe a couple of times over until I really understood this concept of cap rates. But basically in every market, there's gonna be a cap rate that investors are using to determine property value. So whatever the NOI is, divided by that market's cap rate will give you the property value. And what's most important is that you understand how changing that NOI impacts the value of the property. So let's just put super simple numbers to it. So again, these aren't supposed to be realistic numbers. This is just for you to get an understanding. So let's imagine we have a commercial property whose NOI, the income minus the expenses, outside of the debt payment, income minus the expenses equals $100,000 per year. Okay? And let's say that in this particular market, a 5% cap rate is typical. Well, that, with our trusty dusty calculator, would give us a property value of $2 million. Not too bad. Now let's say that we're actually really good business people and really good business operators. And instead of $100,000 in NOI, we're able to get the income up and the expenses down so that when we take our income minus expenses, we actually have $300,000 left over when the year is at its end. Divided by that same 5% market cap rate, now our property is actually worth $6 million instead of $2 million. And this is why commercial real estate is really appealing, because instead of like residential real estate where the value of my property is just dependent on the comps of what everything else around me sold for, with commercial real estate, the value of my property is now dependent on how good of a business operator I am and able to get my NOI higher so that the value of my property at the end of the day can be more. That can be beneficial when I'm going to refinance and maybe I want to do a cash out refinance and get 80% of my property's value out of the deal. If I'm looking at 80% of $2 million, that would be $1.6 million that I might be available to get from a cash out refinance. But if I'm looking at 80% of my increased $6 million, now I'm looking at a cash out refinance of $4.8 million. Or if I'm just looking to sell the property, now I can show that with a $300,000 NOI and a 5% cap rate, I've got a $6 million property value on my hands versus a $2 million property value on my hands. So a lot more of the control in terms of what the property is worth is dependent on my savviness as a business person rather than just the comps of the other residential properties around my property. You could run your own business out of that commercial property that you own, and you'll have even more control over the income and the expenses. Now, that's not to say that every real estate investor is also going to be a really good business operator, but I like business and I view myself as an entrepreneur who part of what I do is invest in real estate, but I'm also really interested in running other businesses of my own, such as my agency and such as this new endeavor that we might operate out of the commercial spaces. So in that case, space, we'd own the commercial space, but also the business that operates out of it. And that's the business plan that I'm working on putting together and presenting to Devin so that he can build out the financial model and we can see really how feasible we think this is gonna be, if we're gonna be bringing on investors, and exactly what type of commercial property we're gonna need to execute on that business plan. So super exciting stuff. If any of this interests you, let me know in the comments. Again, this is different from what I typically talk about on this channel, but it's what I'm doing, it's what I'm investing in, and I just wanna continuously bring you guys along for the journey. Okay, that was a fun little stretching class. That was my first time going to that. And one of the things that I have to work on is packing too much into my days. So I had that meeting this morning and I was like, yeah, I'll go to this stretching class after because I'm paying for this gym membership, so I might as well use it. And then I was like, and I have another meeting 15 minutes after that. It'll be totally fine. So not enough time to go back home after the class. So I'm like, let me go to a Starbucks and I will work in the Starbucks. So then I put in the GPS, I find a Starbucks. It's inside a super Target. That's not gonna be a good working environment. But my meeting is already here, so we're just gonna do this from the car. It's fine. It's with a friend slash client slash business partner. I was heading home and I got a text from a commercial realtor that I work with named Carson. And Carson knows all about this big secretive project that I'm working on. And so he's got his eyes out for some potential industrial slash commercial buildings that might fit our needs. And so he sent me one and I went and drove by it. I don't exactly love the location that this is in, but I do think it's a pretty cool building, being it's an old fire station. And so there is some good potential. I'm putting it on my list of basically like a watch list to keep an eye on for these different properties. But before I can ever really think about what property is gonna fit all our needs, I really need to shore up this business plan and this pitch deck that you guys saw me talking with Devin about so that he can shore up the financial model, and then we'll know exactly what type of building we're looking for in terms of square footage and cost, and then I'll be able to really make some moves on the real estate side. So for those of you who don't know, about 5 months ago, I started my content agency called Lili Media. And this is what I do outside of my real estate investing, is running Lili Media, which right now focuses on running people's YouTube channels. And so we have a couple of different clients across a couple of different industries. And the same exact way that I run my channel is how I run other people's channels. And I think of it in terms of two things: strategy and services. And so today, Kyle and I, who is one of my clients and also one of my good friends that I met back in 2017 in Cape Town, he is a professional pickleball player. He's now a client. He has a pickleball channel, and so his YouTube channel focuses on how to play pickleball. And so we were talking about strategy, we were looking at the performance of some of his past videos, talking about future ideas, talking about some of the brand deals that I'm helping him to secure for his channel, all of that good stuff. That falls under the strategy umbrella. And then we also have a services umbrella where I have a team of editors, writers, thumbnail designers who are helping to basically do all of the things for the client so that the client just has to film and give us the raw footage and we can make everything else happen. So that's what Lili Media does. And when I say that I'm talking to a client, it's a client that maybe has a pickleball channel, a basketball channel, a real estate channel, interior design channel. We've got a lot of different clients in a lot of different industries. And if you've got a YouTube channel that you want our help with, there's a link in the description to see if you might be a good fit for working with us. So let me know what you think. If you enjoy vlogs like this, I'll keep them coming. Just let me know by commenting your favorite emoji. And until next time, thank you guys for watching.